Stop overthinking and the art of letting go. 2 in 1. Quiet your racing mind, release the past, silence your inner critic, and build the calm, confident life you deserve. By Vivian Crane. Introduction. The wind howls outside the tent with a sound like a freight train. Inside, the air is so cold it hurts to breathe. Your fingers are numb, your toes have lost all feeling, and every muscle in your body aches with a dull, heavy throb. But the physical pain isn't what's keeping you awake. It's the noise inside your head. You are 150 miles from the South Pole, and you are terrified that you've made a mistake you can't fix. You think about the ponies. You chose to bring ponies to pull the sleds, while the other team chose dogs. Now the ponies are shivering and sinking into the deep snow. You think about the food. Did you pack enough? Did you place the supply depots in the right spots? You check the math again in your head. Then you check it a third time. Your mind is like a hamster on a wheel, running faster and faster but getting nowhere. This is the weight of every choice you've ever made, pressing down on you like the Antarctic ice. This was the world of Captain Robert Falcon Scott in 1911. He was a brave man and a brilliant leader, but he had a problem that many of us share. He couldn't stop thinking. He analyzed every tiny detail until the details became a mountain he couldn't climb. He worried about what his bosses in London would think. He worried about the weather. He worried about his legacy. He carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, and in the end, that weight was too much. A few miles away, another man named Roald Amundsen was sleeping like a baby. He didn't have a racing mind. He had a plan, he had his dogs, and he had a simple rule. If it doesn't help me get to the pole, I'm not going to carry it. He didn't overthink the what-ifs. He didn't replay his past failures. He focused on the next step. Amundsen reached the South Pole first and made it home safely. Scott reached it weeks later, only to find Amundsen's flag already there. Exhausted by the mental and physical toll of his own choices, Scott and his team never made it back. The mental marathon. Most of us aren't trekking across Antarctica, but we are running a marathon inside our heads every single day. You know the feeling. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have a simple choice to make: what to have for lunch, or how to phrase a sentence in an email. Suddenly, your brain turns into a court of law. You look at the menu and think, if I eat the salad, I'll be hungry in an hour. If I eat the burger, I'll feel sluggish. If I go to that new place, I might not like it, and then I've wasted $10. By the time you finally pick something, you're already exhausted. And that's just lunch. When it comes to the big things, your career, your relationships, your health, the noise gets even louder. Your brain becomes a movie theater that only plays one film: your greatest mistakes and biggest embarrassments. You think about that one time you said something awkward at a party. You wonder if your boss meant something secret when she said, "Good job," in that weird tone. This is the overthinking epidemic. It's a quiet thief that steals your sleep, your energy, and your ability to enjoy the life you've worked so hard to build. Living this way feels like walking through a thick fog. You know there is a beautiful view somewhere out there, but you can't see past the gray clouds of your own thoughts. You want to be present. You want to listen to your friend talk without your mind drifting off to your to-do list. You want to lay your head on the pillow and actually fall asleep, instead of staring at the ceiling and worrying about 2027. You have probably been told to just relax or stop worrying. If it were that easy, you would have done it by now. The truth is, your brain is actually trying to help you. Millions of years ago, overthinking kept us alive. If our ancestors didn't worry about the rustle in the bushes, they got eaten by a tiger. The problem is that today, there are no tigers. The rustle in the bushes is now a text message you haven't answered, or a bill you need to pay. Your brain is using a prehistoric survival tool to handle a modern life, and it's like trying to fix a smartphone with a hammer. This book is a 2-in-1 guide because you can't solve one problem without the other. 1. Part 1 is about silencing the racing mind. We will learn how to turn off the noise and make decisions without the analysis paralysis that keeps us stuck. 2. Part 2 is about the art of letting go. We will learn how to put down the heavy luggage of the past, the regrets, the should-haves, and the inner critic that tells you you're not good enough. You are about to become a mindful architect. Instead of being a victim of your thoughts, you will learn how to build a mental space that is calm, clear, and strong. You will learn to see your thoughts as things you have, not things you are. This isn't just positive thinking. This is based on real history, the lives of people who faced impossible odds, and the way our brains actually work. We are going to look at how a Roman emperor stayed calm while his empire crumbled, how a man survived a concentration camp by finding a gap in his mind, and how a shy woman became one of the most confident leaders in the world. Meet Sarah. To see how these tools work in the real world, we're going to follow someone who is probably a lot like you. Her name is Sarah Jenkins. Sarah is 34 years old and lives in a nice apartment in Chicago. She has a great job as a senior account manager at a big advertising agency. To anyone looking from the outside, Sarah has it all figured out. She's smart, she's kind, and she's very good at her job. But inside Sarah's head, it's a different story. It's 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. The only sound in Sarah's apartment is the soft snoring of her rescue dog Bowie at the foot of the bed. Sarah should be snoring too. She has a big presentation tomorrow. But instead, she is staring at the blue light of her phone, scrolling through an email she sent 5 hours ago. Did I sound too pushy in that third paragraph, she thinks? I should have used the word collaborate instead of direct. Now the client is going to think I'm difficult to work with. If they think I'm difficult, they might pull the account. If they pull the account, the agency will lose money. My boss will realize I'm not as good as she thought I was. I'll get fired. I won't be able to pay for this apartment. I'll have to move back into my parents' basement. In less than 5 minutes, Sarah has turned a perfectly normal email into a life-ending disaster. Her heart is racing. Her neck is stiff. She feels a familiar brain fog starting to settle in. She thinks about getting up to fix the email, but she knows that will only make it worse. Sarah is a mental marathoner. She spends so much energy worrying about the future and replaying the past that she has almost no energy left for the present. She loves her dog, but sometimes she walks him without even noticing the trees or the fresh air, because she's too busy arguing with a person in her head who isn't even there. Sarah's biggest fear is that if she stops overthinking, she will lose her edge. She thinks her anxiety is the thing that makes her successful. She believes that if she doesn't anticipate every single failure, she will be exposed as a fraud. She is carrying 1,000 pounds of mental luggage, and she is starting to break under the weight. Over the course of this book, we are going to watch Sarah learn how to put that luggage down. We will see her discover that her inner critic is just a voice, not a boss. We will see her learn to make choices in seconds instead of hours. And eventually, we will see her learn the most important skill of all, how to be kind to herself. The journey ahead, we are going to take this one step at a time. We won't just talk about the what, we will focus on the how. We will look at the analysis paralysis trap and learn why having too many choices makes us miserable. We will explore the negativity bias and learn why our brains are like Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. We will meet the inner critic, or as Sarah calls hers, Nervous Nancy, and learn how to give that voice a name so it loses its power over us. We will discover the mental break, a simple way to slow down your thoughts when they start to spiral out of control. We will learn the difference between glass balls and rubber balls, knowing what truly matters and what can be dropped without breaking. We will practice cognitive reframing, which is like putting on a new pair of glasses that lets you see challenges as opportunities instead of threats. You don't have to live with a racing mind. You don't have to be a prisoner of your past. There is a way to feel light again. There is a way to wake up in the morning and feel a sense of quiet clarity instead of a to-do list panic. Imagine what you could do with all that extra energy. Imagine the hobbies you could start, the conversations you could enjoy, and the sleep you could finally get. The tools to build this life are already inside you. You just need to learn how to use them. Sarah is ready to start. Her dog, Bowie, is waiting for her to finally be all there during their walks. The world is waiting for you to stop thinking and start living. The first step is simply to realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the person listening to them, and you have the power to change the station. Chapter 1. The Analysis Paralysis Trap. For a long time, everyone believed that the more information you had, the better your life would be. If you were buying a new car, you should read every review. If you were picking a career, you should look at every possible job in the country. The idea was simple. More data leads to a better choice. We were told that the smartest people are the ones who weigh every single pro and con before they act. This way of thinking turned the human brain into a giant calculator that never stopped running. But back in the 1300s, a man named Jean Buridan saw a huge problem with this plan. Buridan was a teacher and a philosopher who spent his life thinking about how people make choices. He came up with a story that has bothered thinkers for centuries. It is known as the story of Buridan's ass. Imagine a very hungry and very thirsty donkey. This donkey is standing exactly in the middle of two things: a large pile of fresh hay and a bucket of cool water. The hay is just as attractive as the water. The donkey is equally hungry and thirsty. Because the donkey is a perfectly rational creature, it starts to calculate. It looks at the hay, then it looks at the water. It tries to find a logical reason to choose one over the other. Since the two choices are perfectly equal, the donkey cannot find a reason to pick the hay first or the water first. It stays stuck in the middle, looking left and then looking right. It never makes a move. Eventually, the donkey dies of both hunger and thirst. It had everything it needed to survive, but it died because it couldn't stop thinking about which choice was best. This is the birth of what we now call analysis paralysis. We think we are being smart by waiting for the perfect answer, but we are actually just like that donkey. We are starving our lives of action because we are afraid of making a move that isn't 100% correct. The myth of the perfect choice. We often believe that if we just think a little longer, the right answer will appear like a light bulb turning on. This is a myth. In reality, most choices in life are like the donkey's hay and water. Both are good, neither is perfect. But the act of choosing is what keeps us alive and moving forward. When we get stuck in the trap of overthinking, we aren't actually looking for the best choice. We are looking for a way to avoid regret. We think that if we find the perfect path, we will never feel bad, never fail, and never have to look back. This is why we spend 3 hours reading reviews for a $20 toaster. We aren't afraid of the toaster, we are afraid of the feeling of being wrong. Scientists have found that our brains have a limit on how many choices they can handle. In the year 2000, a famous study was done by a researcher named Sheena Iyengar. She went to a high-end grocery store and set up a tasting booth for jam. On the first day, she offered 24 different kinds of jam. A lot of people stopped by because they loved having so many options. It looked like a dream for anyone who wanted to find the perfect flavor. But when it came time to actually buy a jar, hardly anyone did. Only 3% of the people who tasted the jam actually walked to the register. On the second day, she changed the booth. This time she only offered 6 kinds of jam. Fewer people stopped to look, but something amazing happened. Out of the people who did stop, 30% bought a jar. That is 10 times more than the day before. The people who had 24 choices suffered from brain jam. They looked at all the labels, thought about all the flavors, and got so tired from the effort of choosing that they decided to buy nothing at all. They walked away empty-handed because the perfect choice was too hard to find. They were just like Buridan's donkey. They were surrounded by good things, but they left hungry because they couldn't stop comparing. Sarah's menu struggle. Sarah Jenkins knows this feeling all too well. On a Tuesday night, she sat in a small, warm bistro in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago. Across from her sat her friend Maya. The restaurant was loud and smelled like garlic and fresh bread. It was supposed to be a relaxing night off from her high-pressure job at the advertising agency. Maya glanced at the menu for 30 seconds, closed it, and said, "I'll have the pesto pasta." Sarah, however, was still on page 1. Her eyes were darting back and forth between the roasted chicken and the salmon. She started a mental checklist. The salmon has healthy fats, but the chicken is more filling. But what if the chicken is dry? Maya got pasta, so maybe I should get something different so we can share. But if I get the salmon and it's small, I'll be hungry later. Have you decided? Maya asked, smiling. Almost, Sarah whispered. Her heart started to beat a little faster. She felt a drop of sweat on her neck. She looked at the menu again. Now she was looking at a salad. Maybe the salad is the right choice because I had a big lunch. The waiter came by, and Sarah felt a wave of panic. She felt like she was being tested. She felt like if she picked the wrong meal, the whole night would be ruined. She told the waiter she needed 5 more minutes. As the waiter walked away, Sarah felt embarrassed. She realized she was agonizing over a $15 meal, as if it were a life or death decision. She was exhausted before the food even arrived. Her racing mind had turned a simple dinner into a mountain of stress. She wasn't enjoying the music or the conversation. She was stuck in the trap, trying to calculate a perfect outcome that didn't exist. Maximizers versus satisficers. Psychologists have a name for people like Sarah. They call them maximizers. A maximizer is someone who wants the very best out of every situation. They will check every website, read every review, and talk to every expert before they make a move. They think this will make them happier, but the opposite is true. Studies show that maximizers usually end up less happy than satisficers. A satisficer is someone who has a set of basic needs. Once those needs are met, they choose the first thing that fits. If a satisficer needs a pair of black shoes, they go to the store, find a pair that fits and looks okay, and they buy them. They are done in 10 minutes. The maximizer will go to 10 stores, look at 50 pairs of shoes, and then go home to look at more shoes online. Even after they finally buy a pair, they worry. They wonder if the store they did visit had a better price or a prettier buckle. Herbert Simon, a man who won the Nobel Prize, was the one who first talked about these two types of people. He found that the human brain is not built to find the absolute best. We simply don't have enough time or energy. When we try to maximize, we wear out our mental juice. By the time we actually make a choice, we are too tired to enjoy it. The secret to a quiet mind is learning to be a satisficer. It means realizing that good enough is actually great. It means understanding that the time you save by not overthinking is worth more than the tiny bit of better you might find by searching for hours. When life feels too complex, it helps to look at someone who had a lot more to worry about than a dinner menu. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome nearly 2,000 years ago. He dealt with wars, plagues, and people trying to steal his throne. His mind could have been a mess of constant worry. To keep his head clear, he used a technique called objective representation. He called it stripping away the legend. When Marcus sat down at a fancy royal banquet, he didn't see royal delicacies. He didn't let the luxury of the room overwhelm him. Instead, he would look at a plate of expensive roasted bird and tell himself, "This is just a dead bird." He would look at the fine purple robes he wore and think, "This is just sheep's wool, dyed with the blood of a shellfish." By describing things in their simplest, most basic forms, he took away their power to make him anxious. He stopped the legend of the object from cluttering his mind. He saw things as they really were, not as his ego or his fears painted them. If Sarah had used this Roman trick at the bistro, she wouldn't have seen a test of her judgment or a perfect meal. She would have seen a plate of protein and a plate of vegetables. She would have realized that in 2 hours, the meal would be gone, and in 24 hours, she wouldn't even remember what she ate. Stripping away the legend helps us see that most of our choices are not glass balls that will shatter if we drop them. They are rubber balls. If we make a wrong choice about dinner, or an email tone, or a weekend plan, the ball just bounces. We can pick it up and try again tomorrow. The cost of information. We live in a world that sells us the idea that more is always better. We have infinite scroll on our phones. We have millions of songs in our pockets. We have more information available to us in 1 second than a person in the 1800s had in their entire life. But this mountain of information is a trap. Every new piece of data we add to a decision acts like a weight. If you are carrying a small bag, you can walk fast. If you keep adding rocks to that bag, eventually, you will stop moving. Overthinking is just the act of adding more rocks to your bag. You think you are preparing for the journey, but you are actually making the journey impossible. The more you know about the potential risks, the more scared you become. This is why some of the most successful people in history weren't the ones with the most information. They were the ones who knew when they had enough information. They understood that a good plan executed today is much better than a perfect plan that is never finished. They knew that the donkey who picks the hay, even if the water was slightly better, is the one that lives to see the sunrise. Breaking the standstill. The reason analysis paralysis is so dangerous is that it feels like work. When you are sitting on your couch, worrying about which gym to join, it feels like you are doing something healthy. You are researching, you are being careful, you are planning. But planning without action is just a fancy way of being stuck. It is a defense mechanism. If you never choose a gym, you never have to worry about failing at your workout. If you never send the email, you never have to worry about a no. We use overthinking to protect ourselves from the world. We stay in the safety of our own heads, because out in the real world, Things are messy and unpredictable. But the cost of that safety is a life of quiet desperation. As Henry David Thoreau once said, we become spectators of our own lives, watching the clock tick, while we weigh the pros and cons of getting off the couch. To get out of the trap, we have to stop trying to be right and start trying to be active. We have to realize that movement itself creates clarity. You don't get the perfect answer by thinking, you get it by doing. Once you take a step, the view changes. You see things you couldn't see when you were standing still. The 2-minute rule for small decisions. If you want to start quieting your mind today, you don't need a massive life overhaul. You just need to stop the brain jam on the little things. The easiest way to do this is with the 2-minute rule for small decisions. Think about all the tiny choices that clutter your day. What should I wear? What should I have for lunch? Which brand of dish soap should I buy? Should I reply to this text now or later? These are the rubber balls of life. They do not deserve your deep thoughts. The rule is simple. If a decision will take less than 2 minutes to make, you must make it immediately. No, let me think about it. No, I'll decide later. No, let me check one more website. Spot the choice. Realize you are standing between the hay and the water. Check the clock. Ask yourself, will the result of this choice matter in a year? If the answer is no, it is a small decision. Pick and move. Give yourself a countdown. 3, 2, 1, choose. By using this rule, you train your brain to trust itself. You start to build a muscle for decisiveness. You prove to your inner critic that the world doesn't end when you make a quick choice. Sarah started doing this the day after her bistro meltdown. When she got to the coffee shop the next morning, she didn't look at the seasonal specials or the pastry case for 5 minutes. She walked to the counter, said large black coffee, and paid. It took 10 seconds. As she walked to her office, she felt a strange sense of power. She had saved 5 minutes of mental energy. She hadn't started her day with a brain jam. She had more mental juice left for her big project because she hadn't wasted it on a latte. She realized that the trap only has power if you agree to stay in it. You can't think your way out of a racing mind. You have to act your way out. You have to be the donkey that just starts eating, knowing that the water will still be there when you are done. Tonight, when you are looking at what to watch on TV or what to eat for dinner, don't look for the perfect choice. Just pick the first good thing you see. Set a timer if you have to. Experience the relief of having the choice behind you. You will find that the good choice you actually make is much more satisfying than the perfect choice you are still searching for. Chapter 2. Shattering the Mirror of the Past. On a cold evening in December 1914, Thomas Edison sat in a chair, watching his life's work turn into a giant ball of fire. From the outside, he looked like a man who had lost everything. He was 67 years old, an age when most people are looking for a rocking chair and a quiet porch. He had built a massive laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey, filled with inventions, expensive tools, and notes that represented years of hard work. The buildings were made of concrete, which people thought was fireproof. They were wrong. The chemicals inside the lab fueled a fire so hot and bright that the sky turned a strange glowing green. Edison stood there, his white hair blowing in the wind, his face lit by the flames. To anyone watching, he looked like a tragic figure. He had millions of dollars tied up in those buildings. He had dreams that were literally turning to ash. But then, Edison did something that nobody expected. He called his son Charles over to him. He didn't look sad. He didn't look angry. He looked excited. He told his son to go get his mother and all her friends, because they would never see a fire like this again. When Charles asked what they were going to do about the loss, Edison said something that changed the way people look at failure. He said that there is great value in disaster, because all of our mistakes are burned up. He thanked God that he could start over. The mirror of regret. Most of us carry a mirror around in our minds. Every time we face a new day, we don't look forward at the road. Instead, we look into that mirror to see what happened yesterday, last month, or 10 years ago. We see the time we tripped during a speech. We see the person we hurt during a messy breakup. We see the perfect version of ourselves that we failed to become. This mirror is the past, and for many people, it is the heaviest thing they carry. When you spend your life looking in that mirror, you are essentially trying to drive a car while staring only at the rear-view mirror. You might see where you have been, but you are almost certain to crash into what is right in front of you. Overthinking is often just a fancy word for clinging. We cling to the past because we think that if we think about it enough, we can somehow change the outcome. We think that if we feel guilty enough, we can pay a debt for a mistake we made. The truth is that the past is a phantom. It has no power over you except for the power you give it by replaying it. Thomas Edison understood this better than almost anyone. He didn't see the fire as the end of his career. He saw it as a clearance sale for his brain. All the old ideas that weren't quite working, all the half-finished projects that were taking up space, and all the mental souvenirs of past failures were gone. He was forced to be in the present moment because the past had literally gone up in smoke. The cost of holding on. In the world of money, there is a concept called the sunk cost fallacy. It is a big name for a very simple mistake. It happens when you keep doing something just because you have already put time, money, or effort into it, even if it's clear that it isn't working. Imagine you go to a movie theater. You pay $15 for a ticket. 20 minutes into the movie, you realize it is the worst movie ever made. Your eyes hurt, the acting is terrible, and you are bored to tears. Most people will sit through the rest of the 2-hour movie. Why? Because they already paid for the ticket. They think that by staying, they are getting their money's worth. But the money is gone, regardless of whether they stay or leave. By staying, they are losing something even more valuable: their time. They are paying for a bad movie with their life, just because they can't let go of the $15 they already spent. We do this with our thoughts every single day. We spend hours replaying an argument we had 3 years ago because we invested so much emotion into that relationship. We stay in a state of brain fog because we feel like we have to figure out why something happened. We treat our past mistakes like they are treasures we have to protect, but they are actually more like old, rotting food in the back of the fridge. The longer you keep it, the worse the whole house smells. Sarah Jenkins was feeling this smell quite strongly one weekend. She had traveled back to her childhood home in a quiet suburb outside of Chicago. Her mother had asked her to clean out some old boxes in her bedroom. Sarah was 34, a successful manager at a big agency, but the moment she stepped into that room, she felt like a teenager again. She reached into a dusty cardboard box and pulled out a small plastic trophy. It was from a high school debate competition 15 years earlier. Sarah stared at it, and her heart began to race. She didn't remember the trophy as a win. She remembered the one round she lost. She remembered the way her voice had cracked and the way the judge had looked at her with pity. She remembered the girl from the other team who had smiled when Sarah stumbled over her words. Standing there in her old bedroom, Sarah felt the same sting of shame she had felt at 18. It didn't matter that she had won dozens of awards since then. It didn't matter that she now gave presentations to rooms full of CEOs. In her mind, that 15-year-old failure was still alive. She was paying rent on a mistake that the rest of the world had forgotten a decade ago. She was holding a piece of junk from the past and treating it like it was a glass ball that could break her entire life. The 5-year rule. To break this habit of paying rent on the past, we need a simple tool. This is a framework you can use every time a memory or a regret starts to bubble up and steal your peace. It is called the 5-year rule. It is a way to sort through your thoughts to see which ones are actually worth your energy and which ones are just noise. The rule is simple. When you are worried or upset about something, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, then do not spend more than 5 minutes worrying about it. If the answer is yes, then you can give it some thought, but only enough to create a plan of action. Most of the things that keep us awake at 3 a.m. are things that won't even matter in 5 weeks, let alone 5 years. That email you sent with a typo, nobody will remember it by Tuesday. That awkward thing you said at the party, everyone else was too busy worrying about their own awkwardness to even notice yours. These are rubber balls. If you drop them, they bounce. They don't shatter. They don't ruin your life. However, we often treat these rubber balls like they are made of glass. We hold on to them with a death grip, afraid that if we let go, everything will fall apart. Shattering the mirror of the past means realizing that almost everything behind you is a rubber ball. Even the big things, the fires, the failures, the lost jobs, are often rubber in the long run. Thomas Edison's lab was a rubber ball. It was expensive, it was big, and it was famous. But because he didn't let his mind break when the building broke, he was able to bounce back. He started rebuilding the very next morning. He didn't even wait for the embers to cool down. The art of the golden repair. In Japan, there is a beautiful way of looking at things that have been broken. It is called kintsugi. When a ceramic bowl or a teapot falls and breaks into pieces, they don't throw it away. They don't try to glue it back.